The research actually from a mechanistic standpoint is pretty intense. I mean, there is a ton of research, especially in clinical. Would I recommend the average person take it? Probably not. But somebody who is going through a severe catabolic event, absolutely. Other than taking an anabolic steroid, I don't know of anything that probably is more potent than something like HMB.
Wow.
Funny story, my dad was in the hospital for 10 days, wasn't healing after his surgery. They couldn't figure out what was going on. I had access to his blood records. His albumin was really low. And I'm like, he's not taking enough protein. And they're claiming he was. Next thing you know, my mom sends me a picture of this product they're giving him called HMB. And then they said, oh, here's the latest clinical update.
Wait, that was their idea? That was their idea, not yours?
Physician, because Abbott sells a HMB based product. And then there's a clinical update and clinical opinion or whatever, and which I co-wrote with people in Europe. And they had that article, and well, here's the latest on it. And my mom's like, oh, well, that's my son, who's a co-author, and a physician's like, what? So I end up calling him and talking about that. But he healed up within 3-4 days. Wow. And came home. So again, people who are in an anabolic environment, like, you know, lots of calories, protein, want to build muscle, this is not going to help you, you know. And I think that's where they're having issue with it. Some of it has to do with the fact that after a particular Canadian scientist did a study for them, mainly it's funny because he did the study on HMB free acid, and they actually traced it, and it went all the way into the muscle. So, but then he filed another, what do you call it, letter to the editor about another study saying that, oh, there's no proof that that happens. And then I reminded everybody that he actually was a co-author in a paper which actually showed it did do that. And it was a really good paper actually that they did. But what happened was he followed up and wanted an additional grant. And they said, well, we don't need to do any more research in this area. And that's when the tides turned. He got upset about it. But the research on this, I mean, like Tony, you know, your fighters who are having to cut pretty significantly a few weeks out, I would recommend that be a good time to do it.
Fantastic. Yep.
I work with some professional football players and basketball or soccer, and when they have these training camps and two-a-days, I say take it anyways, because most of the time you're losing weight, you can't keep it on, which suggests you're in a catabolic state. But that's the only time you take it, you know, for them.
But you guys, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but it's the whole, I guess, the argument is, and you already made it, Jeff, like if you're in an anabolic state, if you're getting enough calories and enough protein, then the effects are probably minimal. I mean, none of us on this podcast would disagree with that. The question is, does it provide any additional benefit, when and where does it shine? And it shines when you're old and you can't eat enough calories and you can't eat enough protein and you're doing two-a-days and your appetite's crushed. So you can't you just can't physically, you know, suck down an essential amino acid shake. So is this one of those things that can help? And I think, yeah, I think that's where the application is. So it's not like DECA, like, you know, was proclaimed many, many years ago. Feels just like DECA, negative. That's not it at all.
That was probably not a wise statement.
Probably not. Probably.
So, can I ask just quickly, gentlemen, Tim, Jeff, your thought on this? So I'm older, I'm 50, I'll be 58. I still train pretty hard. No TRT, I'm not against all that morally or anything. I just don't want to put it in. But so for a guy that is aging and still trying to train hard, and calories are sufficient, protein intake is sufficient, but could it have any effect on mitigating like long-term, even sarcopenia in somebody that isn't, using a TRT therapy as they age to potentially preserve lean tissue? I mean, would it be recommended for someone like me, or as long as the protein and calories are there, we should be okay? What's your thought there?
I know how you eat, and I also know how you train. So given that if your diet is 90% perfect or better, I'm not sure it's going to bring a whole lot to the table. But the other thing we need to talk about is, I think there's some probably some effect on minimizing protein breakdown. But again, that's going to be accelerated when you're doing 2-a-days and when you're, and when you're hypocaloric or hypoenergetic. But having said that, so what's the downside? Again, there's no downside. So there's only upside. There's neutral or there's upside. So why not? Jeff, what's your dose when you use it for yourself? Is it between 1.5 and 3 grams split in half, or is it 3 grams all the way split into 2 doses?
Well, first of all, Tim brings up a really good point. We've actually done a study on this, looking at 6 months of supplementation and what happens in people over the age of 65. So you're still pretty young, Tony. So, but in addition, we give them HMB with a resistance exercise program. And so we had 4 groups essentially, 6 months supplementation and training. And we showed that when you had resistance training, and then we ensured that they were all consuming enough protein in their diet, it added nothing specifically to strength and muscle. However, what was really interesting is the group that took the supplement but did nothing got stronger. And we saw an increase in lean body mass. Now, there's a reason for that. One of the benefits of exercise is it helps control some of the natural inflammation that happens as we get older, right? So as we get older, we're more inflamed. If you're not exercising and on a good diet, then you have trouble with that. But people who don't exercise and also probably don't get enough, like 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight isn't enough, especially if half of it's coming from vegan sources. So they would be the perfect candidate for that. And like, for instance, I have my mother-in-law and a bunch of other people who are on HMB. Again, for them, it's a dosage sort of thing. For me, depending on how intense the day is, I could go up to 5 grams. But to get to Tim's point, it's at least 2 to 3 grams right before a workout. And the reason I say that is because we did this as special forces. And we showed an attenuation of sort of the inflammatory response. And again, it's that whole inflammation. So that's an untapped area we haven't studied enough, but we're seeing enough with HMB that we may be able to attenuate some of that chronic inflammation, which has this severe effect or negative effect on our skeletal muscle, immune system, all that kind of stuff. So
it's kind of ironic. Yeah, isn't it ironic that the people that, ISSN is in June, obviously, and so the people that go there do exercise routinely, and they probably do pay attention to their diet, but yet they're more likely to be taking HMB than the people who really need it and can benefit from it, which are the people who don't exercise regularly and don't pay attention to their normal dietary intake. So the application is widespread for something like HMB, which explains why Abbott, put it in there or still have it, right? Do they still have it in a product? I mean, that totally explains it for me. Right?
Mainly for clinical. I don't think
clinical pods.
Yeah, I don't think they have it in there. And sure, because the problem is that our research study, and that's why they've made it, it was based on, if they didn't take it, if they didn't exercise. But the problem is Abbott didn't want to be the company that says, don't exercise, just take this product. They were hoping that there was going to be a synergistic effect, and we didn't find that.
What would you tell to someone?